Okay, you're officially welcome to Med Jurassic, a place for med studies. Today we'll be talking about the structure of the bacterial cell wall. We know all cells have three major components from the inside to outside: nucleus, cytoplasm, and cell wall. So, based on gram staining, we have two types of bacteria. We have the gram positive and the gram negative. But today, we'll be looking at the cell wall of the gram positive and gram negative. But first, the gram negative bacteria. So, it has three layers. The first is the outer membrane, second peptidoglycan, and last the cytoplasmic membrane. The outer membrane is formed by phospholipid bilayer, but then it has the porine channels through which the bacteria gets its nutrients, and it also have the lipopolysaccharides. The lipopolysaccharides have three major parts. We have the O antigen, have the core part, and we have the lipid A. The lipid A is the major part that causes endotoxic shock, or that causes diseases when our body immune system tends to lysize this particular lipopolysaccharides. So this is the outer membrane. In the outer membrane, you also have little proteins. So the next layer we're going to be looking into is the peptidoglycan layer. The peptidoglycan is formed by an enzyme called the transpeptidase enzyme, which covalently links 4 amino acids to a disaccharide. Now, between the peptidoglycan layer and the cytoplasmic membrane is a particular space called the periplasmic space. It contains a gel fluid, and this gel fluid contains enzymes and proteins. And we must know that this peptidoglycan layer also have an acid called the muric acid, which gives specificity to the type of bacteria we are dealing with. Now, the last layer of the cell wall of gram-negative bacteria is the cytoplasmic membrane, and that's what we're going to be looking at now. Funny enough, the cytoplasmic membrane is not really very complex like the two other layers. The cytoplasmic membrane is made up of just the phospholipid bilayer and proteins. Now, these proteins can be integral or transmembrane or both together, but we are only concerned that this particular part or layer has just the phospholipid bilayer and proteins. Now, the phospholipid bilayer, we know that these phospholipids have two major parts, the head and tail, right? Okay, so this is all about the cell wall of the gram-negative bacteria. Now let's look at the cell wall of the gram-positive bacteria. The cell wall of the gram-positive bacteria just have two layers alone, and this from the outside will have the peptidoglycan layer and the cytoplasmic membrane. Okay, now the peptidoglycan layer, we have already talked about that, and the cytoplasmic membrane, we've already talked about that. But now, in the peptidoglycan layer found in the gram-positive bacteria, instead of having muric acid, we now have teichoic acid, which gives it specificity. Now, we also have complexes of some proteins and other polysaccharides in the same peptidoglycan layer formed by the transpeptidase enzyme. Okay, so this is all about the gram-positive bacteria cell wall. Not quite bulky, right? Yes, that is it. So, what are the differences between the gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria cell wall? That's it. Okay, the gram-positive has just 2 cell walls, while the gram-negative has 3 cell walls. The gram-positive lacks the porine channels, while the gram-negative has the porine channels. The gram-negative has the periplasmic space while the gram-positive does not. The gram-negative also contains the endotoxin, also known as lipid A, while the gram-negative does not contain it. The gram-negative are more penicillin resistant as well as lysozyme resistant than the gram-positive. The gram-negative contains more lipid than the gram-positive. So this marks the end of today's videos. I hope you were able to grab some things. For more videos, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Med Jurassic, your doorstep.